Reciprocals and Logarithms. Evaluation of numerical expressions using mathematical tables. Use logarithms to evaluate the square of 0.07284 all over the cube root of 0.06195. Now, the logarithm of the number 0.07284 is but 2.8624. Multiply by 2 for logarithm, that is the squaring, it becomes 3.7248. Now, the logarithm of 0.06195 is equal to by 2.7920. Get the cube root of that number is multiplying by a third, we get 1.5973. Now we have to multiply. We have now to divide the numerator and the denominator. For logarithm, division will mean subtracting. So we subtract by 1.5973 from by 3.7248. We get by 2.1275. Now let's get the logarithm of that number. The anti-logarithm, sorry, not the logarithm, the anti-logarithm of 2.1275, it is 0.01341. Use logarithms to evaluate the cube root of 36.15 multiplied by 0.02573 all over 1.938. Now let's get the logarithm of each number. The number 36.15, its logarithm is 1.5581. The logarithm of 0.02573 is by 2.4104. Now multiply the number 36.15 times 0.02573. It means adding the logarithms. The logarithms 1.5581 plus by 2.4104. We get by 1.9685. Now let's get the logarithm of 1.938. It is 0.2874. Now we divide the numerator by the denominator. It means subtracting 0.3874 from by 1.9685, we get by 1.6811. To get the cube root of the results, we multiply by a third, we get by 1.8937. Now let's get the analog of that logarithm. It is 0.7829, and that's our answer. Use logarithms to evaluate 1934 squared multiplied by the square root of 0.00324 all over 436. Now let's get the logarithm of each number. 1934, its logarithm is 3.2865. The square of that is multiply the logarithm 3 by 2. We get 6.5730. The logarithm of 0.00324 is by 3.5105. To get the square root of that number, we multiply by half. We get about 2.7553. Now we multiply the numbers in the numerator. That means adding the logarithm. We get 5.3283. Now we get the logarithm of the denominator. It is 2.6395. Now we divide the numerator and the denominator. It means subtracting the logarithm. So we subtract 2.6395 from 5.3283. We get 2.6888. Now the logarithm of that is 488.42. Use logarithms to evaluate 55.9 divided by the product of 0.2621 and 0.01177 and get the fifth root of the product. Now the logarithm of 55.9 is 1.7474. The logarithm of 0.2621 is by 1.4185. The logarithm of 0.01177 is by 2.0708. The product of 0.2621 multiplied by 0.1177, it means adding the logarithms, and we get by 3.4893. Now the fifth root of that number, it means multiplying the number, the logarithm by a fifth, and we get by 1.4979. Now we multiply that product by 55.9. It means we divide. It means we subtract the logarithm. So we subtract by 1.4979 from 1.7474, and we get 2.2495. Taking the under logarithm of that number, we get 177.62. Use logarithms to evaluate the cube root of 1.23 multiplied by 0.0089 all over 76.54. Now the logarithm of 1.23 is 0.0899. The logarithm of 0.089 is by 3.9494. Multiplying the numbers, it means adding the logarithms, and we get 2.0393. The logarithm of 76.54 is 1.8839. Now dividing the denominator and the numerator, it means subtracting 1.8839 from by 2.0393, and we get by 4.1554. Getting the cube root of that number, it means multiplying by a third, and we get by 2.7185. Getting the analog of that logarithm, we get 0.0523. Find the reciprocal of 0.342, hence evaluate the square root of 0.625 all over 0.342. Now the reciprocal of 0.342 is 2.9240. Now let's find the logarithm of 2.9240. It is 0.4660. The logarithm of 0.625 is by 1.7959. The logarithm of the square root of 0.625 is by 1.7959 multiplied by half, which gives us by 1.8979. Now add the two, the numerator and the denominator, we get 0.3639 as the logarithm. Find the analog. The answer is 0.2703. Use logarithms to evaluate 3.256 multiplied by 0.0536. Then get the cube root of the result. Now get the logarithm of 3.256. It is 0.5127. The logarithm of 0.0536 is by 2.7292. Now add the two, you get by 1.2419. Multiply by a third, you get by 1.7473. Get the analog of this result, you get 0.5587. Use reciprocals and squares table to evaluate to four significant figures. Now the number 1 all over 24.56, its reciprocal is 0.0407. The number 4.346 squared, the square is 18.8877. Add the two, get 18.88 to four significant figures. Use logarithms to evaluate the square root of 0.0056 all over 1.38 multiplied by 27.42. Now this logarithm of 0.056 is by 3.7482. The square root of 0.052 is 3 by 3.7482 multiplied by half, which becomes 2.8741. The logarithm of 1.38 is 0.1399. The logarithm of 27.42 is 1.4381. Add the two, you get 1.5780. Now subtract the denominator from the numerator, we get by 3.2961. Get the analog, we have 0.00197774. Use logarithms to evaluate 2,347 multiplied by 0.4666 all over the cube root of 0.0924. Now the logarithm of 2347 is 3.3705. The logarithm of 0.4666 is by 1.6689. Add the two, we get 3.0394. The logarithm of 0.0924 is by 2.9657. The cube root of 0.0924 is by 2.9657 multiplied by a third, which gives us the logarithm as by 1.6552. Now subtract the denominator from the numerator. We have 3.3842. Get the analog of that. We have 2,421. Use logarithms to evaluate 34.33 all over the square root of 5.25 multiplied by 0.042. Now the logarithm of 34.33 is 1.5357. The logarithm of 5.25 is 0.7202. The logarithm of 0.042 is by 2.6232. Now add the denominator. What is for the denominator? We get by 1.3434. Now get the square root of the denominator. We have by 1.6717. Now subtract the results from the numerator. We get by 1.8640. Get the logarithm of the results. We get 73.114. Use reciprocal tables only to work out 3 all over 0.6735 plus 13 all over 0.156. Now the table below shows the reciprocal of 0.6735. It is 1.4848 multiplied by 3. You get 4.4543. The reciprocal of 0.156 is 6.4103 multiplied by 13. We get 83.3339. Add the 2. We get the answer as 87.7882. In this question, show all the steps in your calculations, giving your answer at each stage. Use logarithms to correct to 4 decimal places to evaluate the cube root of 36.72 multiplied by the square of 0.46 all over 185.4. Now the logarithm of 36.72 is 1.5649. The logarithm of 0.46 is by 1.6628. The logarithm of the square of 0.46 is by 1.6628 multiplied by 2, which gives us by 1.3256. The logarithm of 185.4 is 2.2681. Now add the numerator, that is 36.72 and 0.46 squared. If you add their logarithms, you get 0.8905. Now subtract the logarithms from the logarithm of 185.4, you get by 2.6224. Now get the cube root of the results by multiplying by a third, you get by 1.5408. Get the analog, the answer is 0.3474. Use logarithm tables to evaluate the square and the cube root of 0.032 multiplied by 14.2 0.026 all over 0.006. The logarithm of 0.032 is but 2.5051. The logarithm of 14.26 is 1.1541. Add the two, we get by 1.6592. The logarithm of 0.006 is by 3.7782. Now subtract from the data, we get 1.8810. Now get the square and the cube root by multiplying the results by 2/3. We get 1.254. Get the analog of 1.254. The result is 17.947. Use logarithms correct to 4 decimal places to evaluate the cube root of 83.46 multiplied by 0.0054 all over the square of 1.56. Now the logarithm of 83.46 is 1.9215. The logarithm of 0.0054 is by 3.7324. Now add the logarithms of the numerator. We get by 1.6539. Now the logarithm of 1.56 is 0.1931. The logarithm of 1.56 squared is, you multiply by 2 the logarithm of 1.56, we get 0.3862. Now subtract the numerator from the denominator, the logs. We have negative by 1. We have by 1.2677. Now get the cube root of the results by multiplying by a third. We have by 1.7559. Get the analog of the results. We get 0.57003 as the answer. Find the reciprocal of 0.216 correct to 4 significant figures to evaluate the cube root of 0.512 all over 0.216. Now 0.216, the reciprocal is 4.6296. Now let's get the logarithm of 0.512. It is by 1.7093. The cube root of 0.512, you multiply the logarithm by a third, we get by 1.9031. Now add to it the logarithm of 4.6296, or to 4 significant figure is 4.630. We get 0.5686. Get the analog, we get the answer as 3.703. Use logarithms correct to 4 decimal places to evaluate the cube root of 1.794 multiplied by 0.038 all over 1.243. The log of 1.794 is 0.2538. The log of 0.038 is by 2.5798. Add the two, we get 2.8336. The log of 1.243 is 0.0945. Subtracted from the sum above, we get by 2.7391. Get the cube root of this by multiplying by a third. We get by 1.5797. Get the analog. The result is 0.37992. Correct to use logarithms correct to four significant figures to evaluate the square root of 72.56 multiplied by 0.64 all over the square of 1.845. This logarithm of 72.56 is 1.8607. The logarithm of 0.64 is by 1.8062. Add the two, we get 1.6669. The logarithm of 1.845 is 0.2660. The square of 0.845 as logarithm is 0.5320. Now subtract this. Use logarithms to evaluate the cube root of 1.654 squared all over 45.73 multiplied by 0.56. Now the logarithm of 1.654 is 0.2185. The logarithm of 1.654 squared is 0.4371. The logarithm of 43.73 is 1.6602. The logarithm of 0.56 is by 1.7482. Now add the logarithm for the denominator. We get 1.4084. Now subtract the logarithms of the denominator from the numerator. We get by 1.0287. Get the cube root by multiplying by a third. We get by 1.6762. Get the analog. We get 0.4745. Use mathematical tables to find the reciprocal of 0.0247. Hence, evaluate correct to two decimal places the cube root of 3.025 all over 0.0247. The reciprocal of 0.0247 is 40.4858. The logarithm of 3.025 is 0.4807. The cube root of 3.025 in terms of logarithms is 0.1602. The logarithm of 40.4858 is 1.6073. Add the two, that is 0.1602 plus 1.6073. We get 1.7675. Get the analog, and the answer is 58.546. To two decimal places, it is 58.55.